20 years had passed since the humans landed on the dead moon. 20 years of struggle. 20 years of sacrifice. 20 years of building something from nothing. And now, standing at the top of the Great Dome, who could see how far they had come. The dome stretched for 3 miles in every direction. Under its glass ceiling, trees grew tall and green. Rivers flowed through carefully carved channels. Children played in parks that their parents had built with their own hands. This was not the gray dead rock that Yuna had first stepped onto. This was home. Wu was an engineer. He had been born on the ship during the long journey through space, and he had spent his whole life fixing things. Broken pipes, dead circuits, machines that had stopped working centuries ago. But building the dome had been his greatest work. It had taken 15 years. Thousands of people had helped. Many had died during the construction. But now it was finished, and it was beautiful. The council sent another message, said a voice behind him. Wu turned. Hana stood there, holding a small tablet in her hands. She was the head biologist of the colony. She was the one who had figured out how to make plants grow in the dead soil. She was the one who had turned a gray moon into a green world. What do they want? Wu asked. They want to know why we are expanding into the nearby asteroid belt. Wu laughed. The Galactic Council had given them the worst land in the entire galaxy. A dead moon in the outer rim. No resources. No value. No future. And now they were surprised that the humans had found a way to make it work. Tell them we need minerals, Wu said. Tell them our population is growing. Tell them we have nowhere else to go. Hannah nodded, but she did not leave. She was looking at the dome with a strange expression on her face. What is it? Wu asked. I was thinking about Captain Tay, she said. He died last year. Did you know him? Wu shook his head. Tay had died at the age of 89. He had seen the first dome completed. He had walked through the first forest. He had tasted the first fruit grown on this moon. And then, one quiet morning, he had closed his eyes and never opened them again. He used to say something, Hana continued. He used to say that the galaxy forgot about us. And that one day, the galaxy would remember. Do you think he was right? Hannah smiled. It was a small smile, but there was something sharp in it. Something knowing. I think the galaxy will remember, she said. But I do not think they will be happy about it. The Galactic Council met once every year in the Great Hall on Vel Prime. Representatives from 12 species sat around. Massive table made from the bones of an ancient space creature. They discussed trade and war and politics and the future of the galaxy. And sometimes, just sometimes, they discussed the humans. They've built a second dome, said Representative Moss. He was a tall creature with blue skin and eyes that could see in complete darkness. Our scouts have confirmed it. The humans are expanding. Let them expand, said Representative Cora. She was smaller, with scales that changed color based on her mood. Right now, they were a calm green. They are on worthless land. What does it matter if they build another dome or 100 domes? They have no ships, no weapons, no way to threaten us. But they are multiplying, Moss said. 20 years ago, there were 10,000. Now there are 30,000. In another 20 years, there could be 100,000. Cora waved her hand. Let them multiply. The outer rim is vast. They can fill it with 1 million humans, and it would still mean nothing. We have empires. They have rocks. The council agreed. The humans were a curiosity, nothing more. A species that had somehow survived when they should have died. It was almost admirable. But admirable did not mean dangerous. Admirable did not mean important. The meeting moved on to other topics. The Mara Empire was growing more aggressive. Trade routes were being threatened. New alliances were being formed. The humans were forgotten once again, but on the dead moon that was no longer dead, the work continued. Wu spent the next decade building ships. Not warships, not exploration vessels, just simple cargo ships that could carry goods from one place to another. The humans had discovered something in the asteroid belt, something that the Council had somehow missed: rare minerals. Valuable ones. The kind that powered the engines of great warships. The kind that everyone in the galaxy needed. "We should sell them," Hana said one evening. They were sitting in her laboratory, surrounded by plants and test tubes and the gentle hum of growing things. "Sell them to who?" Wu asked. "To everyone. The Vel need them. The Moran need them. Even the smaller species need them. We have something that the entire galaxy wants. We should use it." Wu thought about this. He was an engineer. He understood machines and systems and how things worked. And he understood that what Hana was suggesting was dangerous. "If we become valuable," he said slowly, "then people will notice us. And if people notice us, they might decide they want what we have." Hana nodded. "Yes, that is the risk. But we cannot hide forever. We are growing. We need food. We need medicine. We need technology. We cannot get those things by staying invisible." She was right. Wu knew she was right. The humans had survived by being ignored. But they could not grow by being ignored. At some point, they would have to step into the light. "Small trades," he said finally. "We start small. We sell to the merchants who do not ask questions. We build relationships. We make ourselves useful without making ourselves threatening." Hana smiled. "Now you are thinking like a survivor." The first trade was simple. A small merchant ship from the Vel Federation arrived at the outer moon. The captain was a nervous creature with 6 arms and a face that seemed to be constantly sweating. He had heard rumors about the humans. He had heard they had minerals. He had come to see if the rumors were true. A young woman named Sue met him at the dock. She was 23 years old. She had been born in the first dome. She had never seen another species before, but she had been trained for this moment. "Welcome," she said. Her voice was calm. Her smile was warm. "We have been expecting you." The merchant looked around. The dome was clean. The air smelled like flowers. Children were playing in a nearby park. It was nothing like what he had expected. He had expected poverty, desperation, a dying species begging for help. Instead, he found a thriving community that seemed almost happy. "You have minerals?" he asked. "We have many things," Sue said. "Come, let me show you." The trade was successful. The merchant left with a cargo hold full of rare minerals. The humans received medicine, seeds, and basic technology that they could study and improve. It was a good deal for everyone. The merchant told his friends. His friends told their friends. Soon, more ships were coming. Not many, just a few each month. But each ship brought something valuable. Each ship took something valuable. And slowly, the humans began to connect with the galaxy that had forgotten them. Wu watched it all from his workshop. He was older now. His hair was gray. His hands were not as steady as they used to be. But his mind was still sharp. And he could see the pattern forming. "We are becoming part of the machine," he said to Hannah one day. She was old too now. Her back was bent. Her eyes were weak. But she still spent every day in her laboratory, still trying to make things grow. "What do you mean?" she asked. "The galaxy is a machine," Wu explained. "Trade routes, supply chains, resources moving from one place to another. We were outside the machine. Now we are becoming part of it. Is that bad?" Wu shook his head. "No, it is necessary. But it also means we cannot be ignored anymore. The more we connect, the more people will depend on us. And the more people depend on us, the more power we will have. Hannah laughed. It was a tired laugh. She had not slept well in years. But it was also a satisfied laugh. Power, she said. The council gave us rocks and dust. They gave us nothing. And now we are building power. Yes, Wu said. But power is dangerous. We must be careful. We must be patient. He stopped. A young man was running toward them. His name was June, and he worked in the communication center. He was breathing hard. His face was pale. What is it? Wu asked. A message, June said. From the council. They want to send an inspection team. They want to see what we have built. Wu and Hannah looked at each other. The moment they had been waiting for it finally arrived. The galaxy was starting to notice. Tell them yes, Wu said. Tell them we welcome their inspection. Tell them we have nothing to hide. June ran back to the communication center. Hannah turned to Wu. Do we have something to hide? She asked. Wu smiled. It was a small smile. A careful smile. Everyone has something to hide, he said. But we will show them enough to make them comfortable. And we will keep the rest hidden until we are ready. Ready for what? Wu looked out at the dome. At the trees and rivers and the children playing in the parks. At the ships flying overhead. At the world they had built from nothing. Ready for whatever comes next, he said. The inspection team arrived 2 weeks later. They walked through the domes. They tested the air. They counted the people. They examined the mines and the farms and the small factories where humans built their simple machines. They left with a report that said exactly what the council expected. The humans were surviving. They were even thriving in their small way. But they were not a threat. They were not important. They were just a curious species doing interesting things on worthless land. The council read the report and filed it away. They had empires to manage. Wars to fight. The Mora Empire had always been hungry. They wanted more land, more resources, more power. And when they looked at the trade routes of the Outer Rim, they saw easy prey. Merchant ships carrying valuable cargo. Weak defenses. No real protection from the Galactic Council. It was perfect. The raids began on a quiet morning. 3 Mora warships dropped out of hyperspace near a trading station. They did not send warnings. They did not ask for surrender. They simply opened fire. The station was destroyed in minutes. 50 ships were lost. Thousands of traders from a dozen species died in the cold vacuum of space. And the Mora ships disappeared before anyone could respond. The Galactic Council called an emergency meeting. This is an act of war. Representative Moss shouted. His blue skin had turned dark purple with anger. The Mora have attacked our trade routes. They have killed our citizens. We must respond. Representative Cora's scales were bright red. Respond how? The Mora have 300 warships. We have 200. And half of ours are protecting our core worlds. We cannot fight them in the Outer Rim. The arguing continued for hours. Everyone agreed that something must be done. No one agreed on what that something should be. And while they argued, the Mora attacked again. And again. And again. The Outer Rim was burning. Trade ships stopped traveling. Merchants refused to leave their ports. The economy of the entire region was collapsing. And still, the council could not agree on a response. The humans watched it all from their domes. Commander Day was not a young man. He was 62 years old. He had been born on the colony and had never left it. But he had spent his entire life studying war, reading old books from Earth, watching recordings of battles from the galaxy's long history, learning how empires rose and fell. And now, sitting in his small office, he saw an opportunity. "The Council will not protect the Outer Rim," he said. Nari sat across from him. She was younger, only 40, but she had a mind that could see patterns in chaos. She was a strategist. She could look at a problem and find solutions that no one else could see. "No," she agreed. "They are too afraid of the Mora. They will sacrifice the Outer Rim to protect their core worlds, which means the merchants have no one to protect them." Nari smiled. "Except us." Day leaned back in his chair. Outside his window, he could see the dome stretching toward the artificial sky. 50 years ago, this had been a dead moon. Now it was home to almost 100,000 humans. They had ships. Not warships, just cargo vessels. But they had pilots. They had engineers. They had people who were willing to fight. "We are not soldiers," they said carefully. "Our ships are not built for war." "No," Nari said. "But we do not need to fight a war. We need to fight a different kind of fight. The Mora are hunters. They look for easy prey. We make the prey harder to catch." "How?" Nari pulled out a small device and projected a map of the Outer Rim onto the table. Trade routes glowed in yellow. Mora attack locations glowed in red. Human trading posts glowed in blue. "We have 30 cargo ships," Nari said. "Each one makes regular runs through these routes. The Mora have been studying the patterns. They know when the most valuable cargo ships will be where. They attack when the targets are weakest. So we change the patterns. We do more than that." Nari touched the map, and new lines appeared. "We create a network. Our ships do not travel alone anymore. They travel in groups. They share information. When one ship sees Mora raiders, they all know. When one area is dangerous, they all avoid it." They studied the map. It was elegant. It was simple. And it could work. "The merchants from other species," he said. "Will they join us?" "They have no choice. The Council will not protect them. We are offering protection. In exchange, they share their information with us. They follow our routes. They become part of the network. And if the Mora attack the network..." Nari's smile faded. Her eyes grew serious. "Then we fight. Not with warships, but with numbers, with coordination, with the knowledge that we are fighting for survival." The network launched 2 weeks later. Human cargo ships spread out across the Outer Rim. They carried the same cargo they always carried. They looked the same as they always looked. But now they were connected. Every ship had a communication device that linked to every other ship. Every captain knew what every other captain knew. The network was alive. The first test came 3 days later. A human cargo ship named the Sunrise was traveling near the edge of Mora space. The captain was a young woman named Gia. She was 28 years old. She had been flying cargo ships since she was 16. She knew every asteroid, every jump point, every safe harbor in the Outer Rim. But she had never faced Mora raiders. The warning came at midnight. Another ship, 2 systems away, had spotted Mora ships moving in her direction. The message was simple: Mora incoming. 3 ships. 4 hours. Gia did not panic. She had been trained for this. She immediately sent a message to the network. Within minutes, 5 other cargo ships had changed course. They were coming to help. Not to fight. Just to be there. Just to make sure she was not alone. When the Mora raiders arrived, they expected to find one small cargo ship. Easy prey. Instead, they found 6 ships flying in tight formation. 6 ships that scattered in different directions the moment they appeared. 6 ships that were faster and more nimble than any cargo vessel had a right to be. The Mora tried to chase. They picked one ship and followed it. But every time they got close, Another ship would appear from a different direction, distracting them, drawing their attention away. It was like trying to catch smoke with bare hands. After 2 hours, the Mora gave up. They had used too much fuel. They had traveled too far from their safe space. They turned and left empty-handed. Gia sent a message to the network. Mora retreated. No losses. On the colony, Day received the message and allowed himself a small smile. The first battle had been won without firing a single shot, but the war was just beginning. The Mora adapted. They sent more ships. They changed their tactics. They started attacking multiple targets at once, trying to overwhelm the network. And slowly, the cost began to rise. Ships were lost. Good people died. A young pilot named Hyan was caught alone when his communication system failed. A cargo ship called the Morning Star was cornered by 5 Mara raiders and destroyed before help could arrive. Each loss was felt by the entire network. Each loss made the survivors more determined. .NR. I spent her days and nights studying Mora movements. She looked for patterns in their attacks. She looked for weaknesses in their strategy. And slowly, she began to see something. They are predictable, she told Day one evening. They were in the command center, surrounded by screens showing ship positions across the outer rim. Predictable how? They attacked the same way every time. 3 ships. Fast approach. Quick strike. Fast retreat. They never change. They never adapt. They frowned. That seems like a strength, not a weakness. It is a weakness because they expect their enemies to be predictable too. They expect us to run. They expect us to hide. They do not expect us to fight back. We cannot fight them directly. We do not have weapons. Nari smiled. It was the same sharp smile that Day had learned to respect over the months they had worked together. We do not need weapons, she said. We need traps. The plan was simple. Nari had identified the routes the Mora used most often. She knew which jump points they preferred. She knew how long it took them to approach a target. She knew everything about how they fought. The next time a cargo ship was targeted, it did not run. Instead, it flew straight toward a nearby asteroid field. The Mora followed, confident in their speed and power. They did not see the danger until it was too late. The asteroids had been rigged. Not with explosives, just with simple thrusters. When the Mara ships flew close, the asteroids came alive. They slammed into the raiders from every direction. The Mara shields could handle 1 impact. They could not handle 20.2 Mara ships were destroyed. The third escaped, badly damaged. The message spread across the galaxy within hours. The humans were fighting back. The humans were winning. The Galactic Council finally paid attention. Representative Moss called for a private meeting with the human delegation. He met Ambassador Sue, the same woman who had made the first trade with the nervous merchant so many years ago. She was older now, wiser, but her smile was still warm and her eyes still sharp. The council is impressed, Moss said. You have done what our fleets could not. You have slowed the Mora advance. We have done what was necessary to survive, Sue replied. Yes, but you have also proven something. You have proven that you are more capable than we thought. Sue said nothing. She just waited. Moss leaned forward. The council is willing to offer you a trade, protection, official recognition, a seat at the table. In exchange, you share your network. You share your tactics. You help us fight the Mora. Sue thought about this for a long moment. It was everything the humans had wanted. Recognition, respect, a place in the galaxy. But she knew there was a cost. And what happens after the Mora are defeated? She asked. Moss smiled. It was not a warm smile. After? After, you will be our allies. You will be part of the Council's protection. You will be safe. Safe. The word hung in the air between them. Sue knew what it really meant. It meant controlled. It meant watched. It meant never being. The ship was dying. Everyone on board knew it. The lights flickered every few minutes. The walls made strange sounds. The air smelled wrong. But Captain Tay stood at the front of the bridge and looked at the stars through the cracked window. He did not show fear. A captain could never show fear. "How long do we have?" he asked. Una checked her screens. She was the navigator, and she was very good at her job. But even the best navigator could not fix a ship that was falling apart. "The main engine will fail in 6 hours. Maybe 7 if we are lucky." Tay nodded slowly. Behind him, he could hear the soft crying of a child somewhere in the lower decks. 10,000 people were on this ship. 10,000 humans who had left Earth 300 years ago, looking for a new home. Their grandparents had started this journey. Their parents had continued it. And now, Tay and his generation might be the ones to end it. "There," Una said suddenly. Her voice was different now. There was hope in it. "I see something. A system. 3 planets. 1 moon." Tay walked closer to her screen. His boots were heavy on the metal floor. "Can we reach it?" "Yes, if we push the engines hard. But after that, they will be finished. We will not fly again." "Then we push them," Tay said. "Tell the people. Tell them we found land." The news spread through the ship like fire. People who had been crying started to smile. Children who had been scared started to laugh. Old men and women who had given up hope stood up and looked out the windows. They could see nothing yet, but they believed. After 300 years of floating through the cold darkness of space, they believed. The ship moved toward the system. Every hour, something else broke. A pipe burst on deck 7. The water recycler stopped working on deck 12. The lights in the sleeping area went dark and did not come back on. But the engines kept running. They screamed and shook and made terrible sounds, but they kept running. Una did not sleep. She stayed at her station and watched the screens. She guided the ship past rocks and dust and old broken satellites from some long-dead civilization. She talked to the engines like they were alive. "Just a little more," she whispered. "Just a little more, and you can rest." Tay walked through the ship during those final hours. He visited every deck. He shook hands with the farmers who had grown food in the ship's gardens for 30 years. He hugged the teachers who had raised 3 generations of children in the ship's small school. He sat with the doctors who had kept everyone alive through sickness and injury and the slow madness that came from living in a metal box for so long. "We made it," he told them. "You made it. All of you." An old woman grabbed his hand. Her name was Bora, and she was 102 years old. She had been born on this ship. Her mother had been born on this ship. She had never seen real land, never felt real wind, never tasted real water that did not come from a recycler. "Will it be beautiful?" she asked. Tay looked at her. He did not know. The planet they were heading toward might be rocks and dust. The moon might be ice and nothing else. But he smiled anyway. "Yes," he said. "It will be beautiful." The ship entered orbit around the moon 6 hours later. The engines died exactly as Una had predicted. They gave one final scream, one final shake, and then they went silent forever. The ship floated in the darkness, caught by the moon's weak gravity. Tay looked down at the surface. It was gray. There were no trees, no water, no life. Just rocks and dust and craters that stretched for thousands of miles. "It is not beautiful," Una said quietly. "No," Tay agreed. "But it is land. And we will make it beautiful." The Galactic Council received the report 3 days later. A junior clerk named Voss read it and almost deleted it by accident. The report was simple. A primitive species had drifted into Vel space. They called themselves humans. They had arrived in a damaged ship that could no longer fly. They had landed on an outer moon that nobody wanted. Voss sent the report to his supervisor. His supervisor sent it to another supervisor. That supervisor sent it to a committee. The committee looked at the report for exactly 4 minutes before deciding it was not important. What did they want? One committee member asked. "Permission to stay," Voss said. "They say they cannot leave. Their ship is dead. Do they have weapons?" "No, nothing that we would consider weapons. Some basic tools, farming equipment, medical supplies." The committee members looked at each other. There were 12 species on the Galactic Council. Each species had built great empires. Each species had conquered star systems and fought wars and signed treaties that shaped the galaxy. The idea that a group of primitives in a broken ship could matter to them was almost funny. "Let them stay," the head of the committee said. "The moon is worthless. No resources. No strategic value. No one will ever want it. If these humans wish to die slowly on a dead rock, that is their choice." The committee moved on to other business. There were trade agreements to sign, borders to argue about, wars to plan. The humans were forgotten before the meeting even ended, but Tay did not know he had been forgotten. And even if he had known, he would not have cared. He was too busy trying to keep his people alive. The first week was the hardest. The ship's supplies were running out. The water recyclers were broken beyond repair. The food gardens had died when the power failed. 10,000 people had maybe 2 weeks of food left. Maybe less. "We need to go down to the surface," Tay said. His advisors looked at him like he was crazy. The surface was rock. There was no air, no water. Nothing that could keep a human alive for more than a few minutes. "We have suits," Tay said. "Not many, but enough for a small team. We go down. We look for ice. We look for caves. We look for anything that can help us survive." Yuna was the first to volunteer. She had navigated through the stars for 20 years. She was not afraid of a dead moon. 5 others joined her. Young men and women who had grown up hearing stories about Earth, about green forests and blue oceans and air that smelled like flowers. They wanted to find something, anything. The team went down in a small shuttle. It was the only shuttle that still worked. If it broke, there would be no way to get back to the ship. Yuna stepped onto the surface first. The gravity was weak. She bounced slightly with each step. The ground was gray and hard. The sky was black. There were no sounds except her own breathing inside her helmet. "It is empty," she said into her radio. "There is nothing here." But she was wrong. 3 hours later, one of the team members found a cave. It was deep, much deeper than they expected. And at the bottom of the cave, they found ice. Frozen water that had been sitting in the darkness for millions of years. "We found it," Yuna said. Her voice was shaking. "We found water." Tay closed his eyes when he heard the news. He was not a man who showed emotion. But in that moment, alone in his cabin, he allowed himself to cry. They would not die today. They would not die tomorrow. They had water. The work began immediately. Teams went down to the surface in shifts. They cut ice from the cave and carried it back to the shuttle. They melted it and tested it and filtered it. It was clean. It was safe. It was the best water any of them had ever tasted. The Galactic Council did not notice. They had more important things to worry about. The Mara Empire was expanding its borders. The Vel Federation was threatening trade sanctions. A new species had been discovered in the Outer Rim, and everyone was arguing about who should make first contact, Nobody cared about the humans. Nobody watched as they built their first shelter on the surface. Nobody saw them plant their first seeds in the gray dirt. Nobody noticed when those seeds, against all odds, started to grow. Tay stood at the edge of the small garden 3 months later. The plants were small, weak, but they were alive. Green leaves reaching up toward the artificial lights they had taken from the ship. "We will survive," he said. Una stood beside him. She was thinner now. They all were. Food was still scarce. Water was still precious. But they were alive. "Survive?" she said. "Captain, we will do more than survive. We will build something here. Something the galaxy has never seen." Tay looked at her. She was young. She had dreams that he had lost long ago. But maybe that was what they needed. Maybe they needed someone who could dream. "Tell me," he said. "What will we build?" Una smiled. It was the first real smile he had seen in months. "Everything," she said. "We will build everything." And so, on a dead moon that no one wanted, in a corner of the galaxy that no one watched, the humans began to build. They did not have much. They did not have weapons or wealth or the respect of the great empires. But they had something else. Something that the Galactic Council could never understand. They had each other. They had hope. And they had time. The galaxy had forgotten them. But one day, the galaxy would remember. And on that day, everything would change. The Mora Emperor was not a patient creature. For 2 years, his raiders had been humiliated in the Outer Rim. 2 years of failed attacks. 2 years of lost ships. 2 years of watching a primitive species make fools of his hunters. It was unacceptable. He summoned his war council to the throne room. The generals stood before him, their heads bowed, their bodies trembling with fear. "You have failed me," the emperor said. His voice was cold. "A species of farmers and merchants has defeated the greatest warriors in the galaxy. Explain this to me." No one spoke. No one dared. The emperor rose from his throne. He was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, covered in black armor that had been passed down through generations of rulers. His eyes burned with a hatred that had no bottom. "If we cannot catch their ships," he said, "then we will destroy their home. We will burn their colonies. We will kill every last human in the galaxy. And then we will show the council what happens to those who resist the Mora Empire." The generals nodded. This was an order they could follow. This was simple. This was war. The Mora fleet gathered in secret. 200 warships. The largest force the Empire had assembled in 50 years. They jumped to hyperspace on a quiet morning. Their destination, the human colonies in the Outer Rim. The humans knew they were coming. Admiral Jin stood on the bridge of a cargo ship named the Hope. He was 70 years old. He had served in the human fleet since he was 18. He had fought in the Shadow War. He had lost friends and family to Mora raiders. And now, looking at the screen showing 200 enemy ships approaching, he felt only calm. "They took the bait," he said. General Mina stood beside him. She was younger, only 50, but she had the eyes of someone who had seen too much death. She had planned this moment for 5 years. Every detail, every contingency, every sacrifice that would be required. "The civilian evacuation is complete," she said. "All non-combat personnel have been moved to the deep shelters. And our fleet?" Mina smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who was about to reveal a secret that had been kept for a very long time. "Our fleet is ready, Admiral." The Mora arrived at the human colonies expecting easy victory. They expected domes filled with frightened civilians. They expected cargo ships trying to flee. They expected a species that would beg for mercy. They found none of those things. The domes were dark. The streets were empty. The cargo ships that usually filled the space lanes were gone. The entire colony looked abandoned. The Mora commander was confused. Where were the humans? Where was the fleet of cargo ships that had caused so much trouble? Had they fled? Had they given up? Then the asteroids began to move. The humans had spent 5 years preparing for this moment. They had built ships in secret. Not cargo vessels. Real warships, designed with every piece of knowledge they had gained from studying the galaxy's greatest empires. They had hidden these ships inside hollowed-out asteroids, disguised as nothing more than dead rocks floating in space. There were 50 of them. 50 warships that the Galactic Council had never seen. 50 warships that the Mora had never imagined could exist. Admiral Jin gave the order. All ships, engage. The asteroids cracked open. Warships emerged like creatures waking from a long sleep. Their engines roared to life. Their weapons powered up. And then they attacked. The Mora were caught completely off guard. They had expected sheep. They found wolves. The first wave of human ships hit the Mora left flank. Plasma cannons tore through shields that had never faced weapons like these. The humans had studied Mora technology for years. They knew its weaknesses. They had designed their weapons specifically to exploit them. 30 Mora ships were destroyed in the first 5 minutes. The Mora commander screamed orders. Return fire. Form defensive positions. Where did they come from? But the humans were not finished. A second wave of ships emerged from the other side of the asteroid field. Then a third. Then a fourth. The Mora were surrounded. General Mina watched from the command center on the surface. She had war screens covering every wall, showing the battle from every angle. It was chaos. It was beautiful. They are breaking formation, she said. Jin nodded. They never expected resistance. They do not know how to adapt. Should we offer surrender terms? Jin thought about this. For 50 years, the Mora had hunted humans. They had killed merchants and farmers and children. They had shown no mercy. They had offered no terms. No, he said. Today, they learn what happens when they underestimate us. The battle lasted 6 hours. By the end, 170 Mora ships had been destroyed. The remaining 30 fled into hyperspace, their crews broken and terrified. The humans had lost 12 ships. 12 ships and the brave souls who had piloted them into battle. Jin ordered the fleet to stand down. The emergency was over. The threat was gone. But he knew that this was only the beginning. The Galactic Council received the news within hours. The report was simple. The Mora fleet had been destroyed. The human colonies were safe. And the humans had revealed a secret military that no one had known existed. Representative Moss read the report 3 times. He could not believe what he was seeing. 50 warships, he said. They had 50 warships, and we never knew. Representative Cora's scales were pale with shock. How is this possible? We sent inspection teams. We monitored their trade. We watched them for decades. We saw what they wanted us to see, said another representative, a small creature named Paul, who had always been quieter than the others. We saw farmers and merchants. We saw a harmless species surviving on worthless land. We never thought to look deeper. The council room fell silent. For the first time in centuries, the great empires of the galaxy had been surprised. And they did not like the feeling. On the human colonies, the celebrations lasted for days. People danced in the streets. Children sang songs about the brave pilots who had saved them. Old men and women wept with joy, remembering all the years they had spent hiding, surviving, waiting for this moment. But Admiral Jin did not celebrate. He sat alone in his quarters, looking at a picture of his wife. She had died 10 years ago, killed when a Mora raider destroyed her transport ship. He had promised her that one day he would make the Mora pay, and now he had kept that promise. General Mina found him there, hours after the battle had ended. "You should be with the people," she said. "They want to see their hero." Jin shook his head. "I am not a hero. I am just an old man who got lucky." Mina sat down across from him. She had known Jin for 30 years. She had served under him. She had learned from him. And she knew that he was wrong. "Lucky?" she said. "You spent 5 years planning this. You built a fleet from nothing. You trained crews in secret. You waited for the perfect moment. That is not luck. That is genius." Jin was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice soft. "My wife used to say that humans were different from other species. She said we did not give up. No matter how bad things got, no matter how hopeless it seemed, we kept going. She believed that was our greatest strength. She was right." Jin nodded. Yes, she was. And now the galaxy knows it too. The council sent a delegation the next day. This time, it was not a junior representative looking for information. It was the council president himself, an ancient being named Fel, who had ruled the council for 300 years. Ambassador Sue met him at the dock. She was 80 years old now. Her hair was white. Her movements were slow, but her mind was still sharp, and her spirit was still strong. "President Thel," she said, "welcome to our home." Thel looked around. The dome was beautiful. The trees were tall. The rivers flowed clear and clean. It was hard to believe that this had once been a dead moon. "Ambassador Sue," he said, "I have come to negotiate." "Negotiate what?" Thel's eyes met hers. They were old eyes, wise eyes, eyes that had seen empires rise and fall. "The future," he said. "Your species has surprised us. You have proven that you are more than we thought. The council wishes to know your intentions." Sue smiled. It was the same smile she had worn 50 years ago, when she had made her first trade with a nervous merchant. Warm, welcoming, and hiding something deeper. "Our intentions are simple," she said. "We want to live. We want to grow. We want to be left alone. And if we cannot leave you alone, if your growth threatens our interests." Sue's smile faded. Her eyes grew hard. "Then you will learn what the Mora learned today. We are not prey. We are not servants. We are humans. And we will fight for our place in this galaxy." Thel was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. "I believe you," he said. "And I think, perhaps, it is time for the council to reconsider its position on your species. Perhaps it is." Thel returned to the council with a new report. This time, the humans were not dismissed as primitives. This time, they were recognized as a power. A small power, yes, but a power nonetheless. The galaxy had finally awakened to the truth. The humans were not drifters. They were not refugees. They were builders. They were fighters. They were survivors, and they were just getting started. 30 years had passed since the Battle of the Colonies. 30 years since the humans had revealed their hidden fleet. 30 years since the galaxy had learned to fear the species they had once dismissed as primitive refugees. The Galactic Council chamber was full. Representatives from every major species sat in their designated seats, surrounded by advisors and assistants and translators. The room buzzed with nervous energy. Something important was about to happen. Everyone could feel it. President Thel was dead. He'd passed away 5 years ago, after 350 years of leading the council. The new president was a younger creature named Vel, who had been in office for only a decade. He was still learning the ways of power. And today, he was about to receive a lesson he would never forget. "The human delegation has arrived," an assistant announced. The doors opened. Ambassador Sue walked into the chamber. She was 110 years old. She moved slowly, supported by a cane made from wood grown in the first dome. But her eyes were still sharp. Her mind was still clear. And behind her walked a generation of humans who had been born into power. The council members watched in silence as Sue made her way to the center of the room. Behind her came young men and women dressed in simple clothes. They did not wear fancy robes or expensive jewelry. They did not carry weapons or display symbols of authority. They looked like ordinary people, but the council knew better. These ordinary people controlled 40% of all trade in the galaxy. "Ambassador Sue," President Vel said, "thank you for accepting our invitation." Sue smiled. It was the same smile she had worn for 60 years. The same smile that had welcomed merchants and presidents and emperors. The smile that hid an intelligence that most species could never understand. "Thank you for the invitation, President Vel. It has been too long since I visited this chamber." Vel nodded. He was nervous. Everyone in the room was nervous. The humans had grown too powerful to ignore. And now, the council had to decide what to do about it. "We have called this meeting to discuss the future of human-council relations," Vel said. "There are concerns? Vel glanced at his advisors. They nodded, encouraging him to continue. "Your species has expanded dramatically in the past 30 years. You now control major trade routes throughout the Outer Rim. Your ships travel freely through council space. Your merchants have become essential to the economies of a dozen species. Is trade a concern?" Sue asked. Her voice was innocent. Her eyes were not. "Trade is not the concern," Representative Moss said. He was old now, his blue skin faded to pale gray. He had been on the council for 80 years. He remembered when the humans were nothing. He had watched them become something, and he feared what they might become next. "Then what is the concern?" Sue asked. Moss leaned forward. "Power. You have too much of it. You have built an empire without anyone noticing. You have made yourselves essential to the galaxy's economy. If you decided to stop trading tomorrow, half the species in this room would face economic collapse." The room was silent. Everyone knew Moss was right. Everyone had been thinking the same thing. But no one had been brave enough to say it out loud. Sue nodded slowly. "I understand your concern, and I appreciate your honesty. May I speak freely?" "Of course." Sue turned to face the full council. She moved slowly, her cane tapping on the stone floor. When she spoke, her voice was calm and clear. 70 years ago, my people arrived in this galaxy. We came in a broken ship. We had nothing. No weapons. No resources. No hope. We asked the council for help. We asked for a place to live. And do you know what you gave us? No one answered. You gave us a dead moon. A worthless rock in the outer rim. You gave us nothing because you believed we were nothing. You looked at us and saw primitives. You saw a dying species that would disappear in a generation. You forgot about us before we even landed." She paused. The silence was absolute. But we did not forget. We did not give up. We did not die. Instead, we built. We worked. We survived. And now, 70 years later, you sit here telling me that we have too much power. Representative Cora shifted uncomfortably. Her scales were flickering between colors, unable to settle on one emotion. "Ambassador, we do not deny what your people have accomplished. It is remarkable. But surely you understand our concerns. A species that was unknown 70 years ago now controls 40% of galactic trade. That is unprecedented. That is dangerous." "Dangerous to whom?" Sue asked. The question hung in the air. No one answered, because everyone knew the answer. Dangerous to the species who had held power for centuries. Dangerous to the empires that had divided the galaxy among themselves. Dangerous to those who had never imagined that power could come from a dead moon in the outer rim. A young woman stepped forward from the human delegation. Her name was Yuri. She was 35 years old. She had been born on the first colony, raised in the shadow of the Great Domes, educated in schools that taught both human history and galactic politics. She was the future of her species. "May I speak?" she asked. Sue nodded. "Please." Yuri looked around the chamber. She was not afraid. She had grown up knowing that her people were different, that they had something that other species did not understand, that they would always be underestimated, and that this was their greatest advantage. "You fear us," she said. "I understand. We came from nowhere. We had nothing, and now we have something. That is frightening." She paused. "But you are afraid of the wrong thing. You are afraid that we want to take your power. You are afraid that we want to conquer your empires. You are afraid that we want to destroy what you have built." She shook her head. "We do not want any of those things. We never did. All we ever wanted was to survive, to build a home, to raise our children in safety, to have a place in this galaxy where we could live without fear. And you have achieved that," President Vel said. "So what do you want now?" Yuri smiled. It was her grandmother's smile, Sue's smile, the smile that had been passed down through 3 generations of human leaders. "We want peace," she said. "Real peace. Not the peace of the weak who must accept whatever the strong offer. The peace of equals. The peace of species who respect each other." The council members looked at each other. This was not what they had expected. They had expected demands, threats, ultimatums. Instead, they had received an offer. Ambassador Sue stepped forward again. Her movements were slow, but her voice was strong. "We could demand more," she said. "We control the trade routes. We have the ships. We have the people. If we wanted to bring this council to its knees, we could do it within a year." The room tensed. Hands moved toward weapons. Eyes narrowed with suspicion. "But we will not," Sue continued, "because that is not who we are. We are builders, not destroyers. We want partners, not subjects. We want a galaxy where all species can grow and thrive together." She looked directly at President Vel. "So here is what we propose. A new treaty. A new relationship. The humans will guarantee continued trade. We will share our technology. We will open our markets. In exchange, the Council will recognize human sovereignty. No inspections without permission. No restrictions on our growth. No attempts to control what we have built." Vel was silent for a long moment. The Council was silent. The entire chamber seemed to be holding its breath. "And if we refuse?" Vel finally asked. Sue shrugged. "Then we continue as we are. We will not attack you. We will not threaten you. We will simply wait. And eventually, you will realize that you need us more than we need you." It was a bold statement. It was also true. Every species in the room knew it. The humans had become essential to the galactic economy. They could not be removed. They could not be ignored. They could only be accepted. Representative Moss spoke first. His voice was quiet, but it carried across the chamber. "I have watched your species for 70 years. I dismissed you at first. I thought you were nothing. I was wrong." He paused. "I support the treaty. Not because I like it. Not because I trust you. But because I have no choice. You have won, Ambassador Sue. Not through war. Not through conquest. Through patience and persistence and the simple refusal to die." One by one, the other representatives spoke. Some were angry. Some were afraid. Some were even impressed. But in the end, the vote was unanimous. The treaty was approved. Ambassador Sue walked out of the council chamber with her delegation behind her. Outside, in the great plaza of the capital, a crowd had gathered. Humans and aliens stood side by side, watching the old woman emerge into the sunlight. Yuri walked beside her grandmother. "We did it," she said quietly. Sue nodded. "Yes, we did. What happens now?" Sue looked up at the sky. Somewhere out there, beyond the atmosphere, beyond the stars, was the dead moon where her people had first landed. The worthless rock that no one had wanted. The place where 10,000 refugees had built an empire. "Now," she said, "we keep building. We keep growing. We keep proving that we belong here. And one day, 100 years from now, 1,000 years from now, when species tell stories about the great powers of the galaxy, they will tell stories about us." Yuri smiled. The species that drifted in. The superpower that nobody noticed. "Yes," Sue said. Until it was too late. They walked together through the plaza, past the watching crowds, toward the ship that would take them home. Behind them, the council chamber stood silent.